All right, good morning, everybody. It's 8 minutes after our normal start time, but they've been having a little difficulty with the sound on a video, so we're going to go without the video. We have a guest speaker this morning, both for Sunday school and for then worship. Fred and mine, we've known each other since 83, I think. Yep, 1983, when we were both at Lipscomb. I was a junior. Adam Barr, that's his name, was a new freshman, and we met when he showed up for the open rush for the social club that we were both in. And Adam ultimately became the chaplain of our club, and we have managed to maintain contact over the decades, even before social media made things even easier, but we were able to maintain contact. And about 10-ish years ago, we took a vacation, did a week in Ireland with Mike and Angela Brown, many of y'all remember. And then Elizabeth and Emily and I went on to Scotland for another week and stayed with Adam and his family. He's here this morning to tell us about the work that he and a fellow preacher, Graham MacDonald, are doing in Scotland. It's kind of northeast of Glasgow, but not quite halfway to Edinburgh. They have been working for at least a decade to acquire land and now acquire the funds to build their very first church building. They've had to rent space, rent buildings for the 30 plus years that Adam has been back home preaching. And so that's what he's here today for, to tell us about what they're doing. And then he'll also speak to us in the worship hour about their appeal to try and raise some money, and I'll let him tell you the rest. But so they don't take up any more of his time, this is Adam Barr, B-A-R-R, 2 R's.
Good morning. I'm thrilled to be here. Paul said that they were over on holiday about 10-ish years ago. I think it was about 10-ish years ago I was here. Maybe around, no, it's longer than that now. It's probably more like 2011, 2012, since I was last here. And Margaret Street's always given us a great welcome, and they've always been involved in the work in Scotland. And I know you were helping Scott when he came, and they were in Perth. So you guys have always been very good to us, and so I'm thrilled to be back. It's been a long time. Not least of all, I get to see one of my best friends, Paul and Elizabeth, and I've enjoyed spending a good couple of days, or good few days with them. We're moving on this afternoon, heading up to Birmingham, Alabama, and preaching up there tonight. But I'm thrilled to be here this morning. It's great. You guys talk a little bit funny and may not understand what I'm saying. I'll try and speak slow and be on my best behaviour, but when I'm talking about my country and when I'm talking about things about the Lord and about the church there, I do tend to get a little bit excited. And so if that happens and I go too fast, someone wave, someone at the back just wave, and someone's waving already up there. I'll try and slow down and so that you can get what we're talking about. Appreciate the opportunity to tell you about what's happening in the church there. It's so exciting right now, and I'm probably not going to get all of the details in, but if you get any questions, I think we're having lunch together today, so if you get any questions, just feel free to talk to me, and I'd love to tell you about it. The picture you've got up there is my wife and my daughter with myself. We were away on a walk that day up through Glencoe, which Paul and Elizabeth have been up there. We planted the church there, obviously not my daughter. My daughter was born in 1990, but we planted the church there in 1987, town called Cumbernauld. There was no church, town of about 60,000, and there are other smaller towns within about a 15-minute drive radius that would reach about 250,000. No congregation of the Lord's Church. So my father-in-law, Troy, if you go to that next slide, my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, Jack and Maureen Strachan, and they actually worked with the church in Brandon for a few years back in the early 90s, Brandon, Florida. So they had converted a couple called Ronnie and Mary Nielsen. That'll be the next slide as well, Troy. So they were the first Christians in Cumbernauld, became Christians in 1985, and what they would do was they would travel through to East Kilbride, which is where I was brought up, and where Jack and Maureen were, the preacher and his wife. So that was where they worshipped. There was no church there where they lived in Cumbernauld. So when we were at Lipscomb, and I was graduating in 87, Jack had earmarked myself and his daughter, because he then became my father-in-law, married his daughter. So he earmarked us to go back and start the congregation there. Now, Scotland, it's a tough ground, all right? It's tough to evangelise anywhere, it seems like these days. So I'm looking at these numbers, and that's fantastic what you're doing there. And I'm so pleased to see such an emphasis on that. That's great. And that's missing so many times. But we move into Cumbernauld. Already our culture is one of apathy moving towards hostility. Okay? So I wasn't brought up in the church. My dad hated religion, hated God, hated anything to do with God. I became a Christian when I was 10, started going to church when I was 10, became a Christian. My dad, just as a side note, became a Christian a year and a half later and became an elder in the church. But he was typical of the attitude towards God back then. Church back in the 40s was much stronger. There was about 85 congregations of the Lord's Church back then. By the mid-60s, it was down to 27. Okay? One generation, really. You know, you'll hear people say, we're one generation away from apostasy. Church in Scotland almost experienced that to the ultimate end. Did experience it, but thankfully we've managed to arrest that situation through men like my father-in-law, Jack, and his wife Maureen, and other good men who started to take a stronger stand for the truth. So we are in a town now where people are not interested. The standard of living has become better since the war. You know, it's not, not wealthy by like standards here, but wealthy by other world standards, and certainly better than it used to be. So people are now in the situation where, or the attitude where I don't need God. I'm doing better now and doing fine, don't need him, doing well on my own. So if you were knocking on the door, the answer you would get was, no thank you, not interested, I have my own church. 9 times out of 10, that's what they would say. So you've got about 48% of the country Protestant or Presbyterian, we would call it. I was brought up Protestant. And then about 46% of the country is Catholic. All right. Now, most of those who will claim that allegiance will never go. They'll never darken the doors of a place of worship. But so if you'd come to my door when I was 8, 9 years old, I would have told you I'm a Protestant. Meant nothing to me, didn't know anything about it, but that's what I was born into. It's almost like a nationality. So that's kind of the way it is. When we got to Cumbernauld, we decided we would start working with the young people. The average age of Cumbernauld when we moved there, so remember there's no church, this is the average age of the town. The average age was 25 years old. All right, it's what we call a new town, full of young families. So we thought we'll start working with the kids. I think I've skipped through, Troy, if you skip on to slide 5, probably. No, that's the video. Are we struggling with sound on that? We got sound? Okay, I'll get that later. That's my co-worker. That's just to illustrate very quickly some of the hostility that we then started to face, vandalism, threats. I've been threatened with an axe, bottle thrown at my head, a couple of our women threatened with rape and things like that. So sometimes, that's not often, but sometimes it goes to that extent, especially from the young people. But we decided we'd start working with young people in one of the rougher areas of town. So we hire a school hall and we have a Bible class for the first hour on a Tuesday. I know that's not scriptural, but we did that because we were small and we didn't have enough teachers, and so it meant we couldn't have an adult class because all the adults we needed to help run the Bible class in the youth club. So even to this day, we have our Bible class and youth club for kids on a Tuesday, and then we have our adult class on a Thursday. And we just skip the Wednesday altogether. But this is the school that we hire for the youth club. This is years ago, so some of the kids from a long time ago. We started off with 2 children. Two boys came first week, two brothers, Scott and Stuart Craig. And we said to them, next week, bring your friends, and we'll meet you at this lamppost, street light you call it. So we'll meet you at this lamppost, and we'll go to the hall that we hire for, and we'll have some Bible class, we'll have some games. So we showed up at the lamppost the next week, and there they were, with 16 of their friends, 18 kids. And we had a little, for us, we called it a Vauxhall Astra. And it was the same as your old Opel Kadett, if some of you remember that. And it was a wee two-door car, all right, with about a 1.2 litre engine, which is, I believe, smaller than some of your hair dryers. It's a tiny wee car. And we had like 15 minutes to get them there. So it was me and my wife in the front, and we put 8 of the kids in the back for the first run, and then dropped my wife in those 8, and I went back for the other 10, 2 in the front and 8 in the back. You can't get away with that today, but that's how we built the youth group that we have, and it's been a constant strength of our work since that day. We've never really had a break, and we'll have many of the other congregations in Scotland. They've come to us and they says, what you guys doing? That you've got all of these kids coming to Bible class, you're getting some of them coming to worship, they're at camp, they're at youth weekends, and it's just constant. What are you doing? And I'll be honest with you, we weren't doing anything magic. I had nothing great, nothing really surprising or unique or creative to tell them. We just loved these kids. So we'd go in on a Tuesday night, we'd pay them the attention that they deserved because they weren't getting it at home. It was a rough area of town, and the amount of kids that would be clinging on to Melanie in those early days, some of them would be saying, oh, I wish you were my mum, and things like that. And so they just kept coming back. And we know, now obviously the aim is to try and get into those families, but we know they're not interested at the moment. They're just looking at us as a babysitting service. You'll see another, the next slide, Troy, is again just some of the games we're playing during the Tuesday nights that we're doing that. Right, keep that one up, Troy, that's great, thank you. No, the building one, I'll come back to that in a minute. So, things are going well, all right, and we're growing very slowly, all right. 1 baptism a year, maybe 2 in a good year. If we had 3, occasionally we had 3, and that was great. We were super excited about that. So we're looking, as Paul says, we're looking for somewhere to have our own place so that we could worship. We used to rent this little hall. It's a little community centre. To give you a perspective, it's probably, if you take from the end of the pew over to the wall, it's probably about that wide, and maybe from me, but not quite to the back wall. In fact, no, probably from me to just past the pillar where the balcony starts. So that's about the size. We were allowed to seat about 60 people there. That was the maximum that you were allowed to seat. And we had everything there. We had our fellowships, we had our worships, we had our gospel meetings, our campaign, everything except our youth work, because we needed somewhere bigger for that. And we're still trying to get into these families. We're building. It's all about building relationships. Everything we did was intentional to build a relationship so we'd have a chance to teach them the gospel. So a lot of people talk about friendship evangelism. That's all we have. There's no other kind. Now, we use different tools and different methods to build those relationships, but ultimately that's what it's about. Build that relationship, build a friendship, have a chance to teach them the gospel. So to give you just an example of that and the kind of time that it takes for us to do that, young girl starts coming along to Bible class. Her name is Nicola. And she's coming along now. We are using every excuse that we can get to just knock on the door. So when we're going swimming, or we're going on a trip, or anything that's out of the normal hall, we knock on the door and we'll say, Mr. and Mrs. Barr, they actually were called Barr as well, no relationship. Mr. and Mrs. Barr, we are taking a trip, Nicola wants to come, we need your permission. We did kind of need the permission, but really we just want to talk to them. And by the way, we've got this coming up, we've got a special meeting, we've got a guest speaker or whatever, we'd like you to come. Usual answer, no thank you, I've got my own church. They were brought up Protestant the same as me, and like me, they didn't go. Like my dad, they didn't go, they'd fallen out with the Church of Scotland, but that was still their religion. So we would build up that. Scotland were very sarcastic, okay, so we always get a lot of banter going, and we're building that comfort with them. Nicola comes and goes. Nothing ever happens there. But our younger sister starts coming. She comes to the Bible class, comes to camp and all of that sort of thing. And then we managed to develop a Bible study with her. We're very big on one-on-one Bible studies. So if our young people are in the Bible class, and most of them are completely unchurched, but if they ask a question, we're talking about something, and they ask a question, and if they're anywhere above 10, 11, 12, we'll say, that's a great question. Why don't we meet after school one day, we'll grab a Coke, and I can talk to you, I can answer that question for you. And a lot of times there's a Bible study. Sometimes we just answer the question and that's it, over. But we try and do that in the house, so the mum and dad, or at least the mum or dad, are there, and we're building that relationship, and they're getting to hear who we are. So Emma, we start a Bible study with Emma. Knocking on the door all the time. Mr. and Mrs. Barr, not interested, got my own religion, that's how it's going. Emma starts coming to church, but she comes and goes, never becomes a Christian. But then her younger brother starts coming along, same thing, and we develop a Bible study with him. Knocking on the door, mum and dad still aren't interested. Well, David actually becomes a Christian. His mum and dad don't even come to his baptism. They're not there. But then a little while after that, Karen's dad, his mum, Karen's dad becomes unwell. This is kind of how it happens. He becomes unwell and ends up in Edinburgh Royal Infirmary, in the hospital in Edinburgh. It's about a 45-minute drive, because it's right in the city. They don't drive. So guess who they asked to take them? And it's us. So now we're taking them on a 45-minute drive 3 times a week for 3 weeks, and then 45 minutes back. Captive audience. We can say what we like. They can't go anywhere. And the sarcasm, and we've got a good relationship by now, but they're still not interested. Well, after that's all done and dusted, and our dad's out of hospital, we've got a gospel meeting. So I knock on the door and go in, and we have a little bit of banter. You use that word, right? Banter. A little bit of banter, joking around a little, and Karen's sitting there with 2 of her friends, glass of wine in the middle of the afternoon, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And so I say, Karen, we got a special meeting coming up. We got a guest speaker. I'd love for you to come. And she's sitting with her glass, and this is exactly what she did. Fine, I'll come. And her friends start laughing, and I said, I told you I would get you, because I told her a couple of years before, I'll get you. One of these days I'll get you. And so she came along, and her husband came along, and we baptized them both on the same day. And they're both, not on that day, but after a little while of study, both now faithful Christians. That took 15 years to make that kind of breakthrough, you know. So it's all about building those relationships. Thankfully, sometimes it's quicker than that, but we have to be patient. And sometimes it does take that long. So that's how slowly we're growing. But we're in this little hall, and we know we need to get out. So we're looking for land. I don't know, I can't even remember what the next slide is, Troy. Oh, no, we can go back, we can come off that. I'll come back to that in a minute, thank you. So, we're looking for a piece of land now. Land in Scotland is about $1.5 million an acre. Yeah. So, the church does not even get offered that land as if we could afford it, but it gets offered obviously to construction companies that build homes and businesses, and are going to give the local government, the council we call it, the most profit. And the church and non-profits and the denominations, they're going to be offered a piece of land that's out behind a pub, or maybe the roads are constructed in such a way they're not going to allow homes to be built there, what we would call a multi-user site. And so it's offered to the church at a much lower price. We found out through asking about so many pieces of property that was going to be about $150,000, about £100,000 back then. It very quickly happened where the council, we were asking, it was no. And then the council finally say, guys, there's no more land. No more land for people like you. Right? And they just meant those who couldn't pay full price. So we started looking around at older buildings that we could buy. It was never a good situation, very expensive. They were probably going to have to be flattened. And the way it was if this was the wall of the building, the public footpath was right up to it all the way around. So nowhere to grow. Just, it wasn't worth it. So we thought, let's ask about a piece of private land. And we had found a piece that was close to some council land that we had asked about. And so we'd said, what about this bit? And the council guy says, no, that's private. And that we didn't think any more about it. But we thought, let's call him. So we found out who owned it. It wasn't for sale. We didn't know how big it was or anything. And it was right next to the second busiest interstate in the country. Okay, so the visibility of this location, it was crazy. But we called him. You in American football, you would call it a Hail Mary call. We phoned him up, and he lives in Ireland. We said, we know you own the land down at Auchincilns. It's the name of the area in the town. And we said, how would you feel about selling us an acre for £100,000? And literally, this is the entire phone call. He laughed at us and said, guys, quote, this land is worth millions. I'm not going to sell you an acre for £100,000. And we expected that. So we hung the phone up, weren't upset, weren't discouraged or anything. It was just what we knew would happen. The land on the other side of the interstate, similar distance, similar piece of land, had just sold 2 years before for just over £5 million. £5 million, about $7 million. So we knew what we were talking about and what he was talking about. Never thought any more about it. Now this land's been lying vacant since we've been in Cumbernauld. That's 38 years. All right, nobody's ever touched it. There's a hotel next to it and 2 restaurants, but nobody's ever done anything with this. Well, strangely, I guess, 6 months later, that piece of land comes up for sale. And so I called the guy, the board's up there with the agent's number, and I call him up and I said, Gregor, we are interested in, no, could you send me, my first call was, could you send me the schedule, you call it the listing, the brochure, could you send me the schedule for the land at Auchincilns? So he took my name, took my number, took my address, doesn't know anything about the church. I'm not calling because we're going to buy it. I just want to see it. So he sends me it, it's nice, it's 3 1/3 acres, right on the interstate, exit ramp coming right off straight to it, same back on, going in both directions, absolutely fantastic. It was in pounds, it was about £4 million, so about $5.5 million. So I looked at it for about 10 minutes, threw it in the bin. I wasn't upset, that's what I was being nosy, I just wanted to see. But little did I know, he was recording my name as an interested party. So about 3 months later, I've got the young people down on a trip to like a Six Flags type place. And they're all, I've got to drive them home that night, and Graham couldn't co-drive that year, so I'd had to get some sleep to drive them back through the night. He says, you guys go on yourself, I'm going to sleep. I'm sleeping in the front of the minibus, and the phone goes, my phone, Gregor, and it's Gregor, and he says, Mr. Barr, I'm phoning to see if you're still interested in the land at Auchincilns. I'm kind of blurry, but Gregor, that land is too expensive for us, we can't afford it. He says, well, I know it's listed at £4 million, but you could buy it for about £900,000. Well, that's quite a discount. But it's still a lot of money for us, and we don't need 3 1/3 acres at this point. That's our thinking. So I'm thinking, well, that's still a lot. Would you? And I thought, I'm going to ask one more time. Would you sell an acre? This isn't the owner this time. This is the agent, and I didn't even mention a price. He says, yeah, right away. He just says, yeah, I would sell an acre. So I was all excited. I hung up from Gregor. I called the guys back at the church. I said, guys, told them about the call. I'll be back at 3 a.m. 9 a.m, we need to be down at Auchincilns and pray about this. So that's what we were going to do. Before we even got there, Gregor calls me back and he says, Mr. Barr, still doesn't know it's the church. Mr. Barr, the owner is not willing to divide the land into parcels. You need to buy the whole site. So I says, well, Gregor, that's too much for us then. We're going to have to back out. And he says, again, this is a quote, I'll never forget it. He says, well, I know I said £900,000, but what if I told you you could buy it for something beginning with a 3? And now I'm excited. I'm thinking, by the way, I don't know if you know that Scots we have a reputation of being a bit frugal, tight with money. Like my sporran here, so we only open our sporran twice. I don't know if you knew that. It's once to put our money in and once to check it's still there, and that's it. I'm going beyond that. I don't think we deserve that relationship, that reputation. We're very generous people. But even saying that, when he says something beginning with a 3, I'm thinking 301. He's probably thinking 390. We can thrash that out later. But that's in my head. So I said, can you give us a few days? One of the elders at our sponsoring congregation up in Huntsville, Mayfair in Huntsville, Alabama, the elder and the preacher, one of the elders and the preacher was due over on the Monday. This is like Friday. And they were due over on the Monday for a seminar we were hosting with them. And so they came in the Monday, we went down, we prayed about it, we were down at the land. They said, you guys have got to go for this. This is once in a lifetime. This is ridiculous. This shouldn't even be happening. So we called Gregor back on Tuesday. We said, okay, we're interested. He said, great, so are 5 others now. Now he still doesn't know we're the church. And all of the other 5 offers are going to interested parties are commercial industries. So he said, okay, what do we need to do? This is Tuesday afternoon. And he says, you've got to get a legal offer into my office by Thursday lunchtime. Well, I had no clue how to do that or what it looked like. So we contacted an architect up in the Aberdeen church, which is about 2 hours north of us. And he put us in touch with a guy in Glasgow that he knows through his business dealings. And he helped us get a lawyer. We got it all done. It was nice. She done a great job. Got it in time. And then we waited. So this is now the end of October. And Gregor calls back on the 31st of December, New Year's Eve. We call it Hogmanay. We always have a big party up at the church building because Hogmanay is a huge holiday in Scotland, but it's all alcohol based, unfortunately, for the world. So we have a big party up at the building and we can get together and be away from all that. But we stay till about 2 or 3 in the morning. It's a huge deal. So he calls me just as we're getting ready to go to that, and he says, Mr. Barr, I'm pleased to tell you, and he knows it's the church now because it's in the offer. So I'm pleased to, and by the way, we did offer 301. So with the sales tax, which is 20%, so it was 361. But the offer's 301. So he calls and says, I'm pleased to tell you that the church, Cumbernauld Church of Christ, is preferred bidder for the land at Auchincilns. I used to say I couldn't believe it. Stop saying that. We were amazed, all right, and excited. And I said, okay, what do we do? I had no clue. This is kind of big business for us. And he says, well, we just need to talk about payment. And this is going to sound ridiculous. You know, I'd never thought about payment in all of this. I'd never thought about payment. And I don't know, maybe that's a lack of faith. Maybe we shouldn't have done that. But anyway, I says, okay. He said, when can you pay? Because I'd never thought about it, I'm pulling dates out the top of my head. So I says, I don't know, maybe end of March. This is end of December. And he kind of snorted and he said, Mr. Barr, 4 of these offers, 4 of the other offers, which are all way higher than yours, are ready to pay tomorrow. I said, Gregor, I don't know what to tell you. You now know this is the church, I told him, and I don't know how much this means to you or if you'll get it, but for us, this is the Lord's money. We have to be careful with it. Good stewards, I said. And there's 3 things we have to do. We have to get a coal report done. So in Scotland, coal mining was big back in the day, and the whole country is covered in disused coal mines. So anytime you build on vacant property, you have to check there's not one there. If there is, you can't build. That's it. So we have to get a coal report done. He would know that, but he would want us to pay before that. I said, secondly, we have to make sure it will be rezoned, because our zoning laws, it wasn't zoned for a place of worship, and our zoning laws are very, very tight, very strict. And thirdly, I said to him, well, we don't actually have any money at the moment. And that's what he did, only not quite as jovially. He laughed and said, well, Mr. Barr, I'm going to have to go back to the bank and the owner. It was the first time we'd ever heard the bank mentioned. So we hung up, and I thought, listen, I'm thinking, what would you do if there's 4 higher offers ready to pay tomorrow? But at the same time, the way things had happened, we just thought, well, just wait and see. If he wants to open this door, he'll open the door. So he calls me back about 3 or 4 days later, Gregor, and you know that way where someone's on the phone and you can tell that they're kind of laughing, smiling, but you can't see their face, but you know it in their voice, and that's what it was like. And he's like, well, Mr. Barr, the bank and the owner have agreed to wait until the end of March. So we kicked into gear. We were raising all the money we could over there. I actually was over here. That was back in 2018, 17 or 18, I can't remember, one of those years. And Graham, my co-worker, he calls me. You got to remember, I'm over here telling everyone, this is crazy, this is incredible. Personally, I'm not one who jumps on the whole, oh, this is God done this. And I don't do that very quickly. I'm quite slow to do that, because at the end of the day, we don't know. Even the Apostle Paul would say in Philemon verse 15, he said, maybe, we don't know. So I'm kind of slow, but this I had no other explanation for. It just didn't make sense any other way. So I was telling people, God's hand has got to be all over this. I can't figure out any other explanation. And then Graham calls me and he says, Adam, we've got a problem. The council have called, and in one of the studies, an ecological study that we'd had to do, they have found evidence of two protected species: the water vole and the great spotted newt. And they have diverted entire interstates, motorways we call them, for the great spotted newt. So he says they're talking about we won't be able to build there. And honestly, this is exactly what I said to him. I says, Graham, I don't know what you want me to say. I'm over here telling everyone that God's hand's all over this, and you're telling me this. I'm going to have to just assume that he's got it. I don't know what else to say. And Graham says, well, I guess you're right. So I continued, and from then on we told everyone about the vole and the newt, and just we were trusting God, trusting him. The council called back it was less than a week later, and they spoke to Graham. Graham calls me and says, the council have come up with a compromise. They said if you'll take 25% of your land and section it off and allow the vole and the newt to live there, you can build on the rest of the land. You've got to remember, the vole and the newt are not there. It's only evidence. It's their is that 5 minutes? Yeah. Okay, thanks. It's their nests and their droppings. That's all that's there. They don't come till the summer. This is March. So I'm happy with that. We've got a $5.5 million piece of land for $550,000. So I'm like, fine, let them live there. We won't bother them. But remember the guy who had helped us with the legal offer, who's not a Christian, without even telling us and without us asking him, he went to be honest, I don't even know if he went to the owner or the agent, probably the agent, and has a conversation that somehow went along the lines of, this isn't fair, the church has bought this land and here's 25% of it they're not even going to be able to use. And so they, at some point, agreed to give us a pro rata discount, they said, and knock 25% off the price of the land. So we got just over a £4 million piece of land, $5.5 million, for £267,000, about $350,000. And in the summer, we're waiting on the newt coming, didn't show up. Waiting on the vole coming, didn't show up. I don't know where they're living now. Someone else's land, not on ours. So we don't have to section anything off. Meanwhile, we're still in this little building, so we're going to be very quick about this. We're still growing very slowly, and we're still looking for somewhere bigger to move to. Guy calls from the town centre and says, we'd like to offer you a free office up at the church building. Up at the town centre. I said no at first. My head was bursting with all this stuff. I thought, I can't handle anything else. But then I felt bad about it, and I called him up, and we went in. Long story short, I thought it'd be an office maybe a third the size of your stage platform bit there, just enough room for a desk and 2 chairs. So he moved us into this room. It's probably comparable to this. This was the office. And so we've got it split into a worship area, fellowship area. We've got 5 classrooms coming off it, its own kitchen, its own toilets, a big office. Then he gave us another room, which is probably about the size of that corner under the balcony. We use that for all our teen work. And then we got another room, probably slightly smaller than the whole undercover bit of the balcony. And we have our Sunday morning adult class in there. We can get about 35 or 40. Fantastic. Now the only thing is, that town centre has in the last couple of years now been earmarked for demolition. And by the way, that was all free. Everything he gave us was free. But now it's going to be knocked down. In fact, the first part of it was knocked down just a month before I came over here. But they're starting at the other end, And our section is not due to be demolished for 7 to 10 years. So everything, I mean, the things that have been, some would say, falling into place is just, it doesn't make sense. But God is opening doors. I can't go into all of the reasons that we saw this happening and the reasons we thought we saw this happening. But he's opening so many doors. Remember I told you maybe 1 baptism to a year? So last year we had 12 baptisms and 3 restorations. Unprecedented, and it's him. He's just, we're not doing anything different. In fact, we've had 5 baptisms this year and another restoration. There's 3 that are almost there. People are turning back to God, and we can talk maybe over lunch about the reasons why we think that is. I think it's going to be happening here too, and we have to be ready for that. And so we believe God is putting us in a position where we have to be the ones who are ready to teach the truth and guide people the right way. And so we're over here, as Paul says, just telling everyone we can. I've put some books. Troy's put some books on the back table on the right there as you go out. Feel free to take one. I've got about 1,000 more. If you want more, it's fine. There's a QR code on the back, and it will play you a little video of our congregation. A bit about the story, and you'll meet some of the congregation. We have 11 nationalities. And it's a really close family. Worshipped with them this morning at 6 o'clock on Zoom. And I wish you could all come over and see it. Maybe Paul will bring some over a little bit, not all at once, a little bit at a time. And I'll tell you, it will do your heart good. It will thrill your soul. Fantastic, the opportunities that God's given us. But we need some help. We've started different things like the Highlanders. You can go on Facebook and look up the Highlanders for Christ. And there's an initiative we've started there, because we need a lot of help, and some people are blessed to be able to give in big ways, but then there's this way. The Highlanders can pledge $25 a month for 5 years. If we can find 1,000 of them, that's $1.5 million. It's a way for everyday people who can't give in massive ways like some to do something significant and move the needle in the efforts to build this building. Listen, it's just a building. It's about souls, and that's us finished. Everything we do is intentional about reaching souls. It's just going to be a tool. It's going to be a great one. If you can help us, great. If you can't, that's okay. Pray for us and tell everyone you know, because someone you know may be able to help us in other ways as well. Thanks for your attention. Look forward to fellowshipping with you afterwards, after worship. God bless you.